Session 7, time management. Okay, before we begin, it's been a couple days since I did another vlog again. This week, I have to be very honest. I think that this has been the most difficult week for me. I have been struggling intensely, not just with motivation, but just with like my emotionality towards what's going on. I've just been very weighed by it, and it's been bearing down on me. I think I've just been watching the news too much, and it's just infected my brain. But I mean, in general, my optimism has slowly been sucked away, and I've really been working on restoring myself and getting myself back put together and overcoming some of these really negative, self-defeating feelings, because they are starting to they had, at least over the course of the week, it really started to weigh me down to where my productivity really dropped, and my motivation really dropped, my desire to do anything really dropped. So I share this with you guys because I just want you to know that if you're experiencing the same thing, you're not alone. These are incredibly unusual circumstances, as for a lot of us who are extroverts, the loss of human contact and social interactions, and just like that the fuel that is for who we are, or who you are as a person, it's really hard to overcome, and it can really shut you down. So no excuses. I like to say no excuses, but in reality, like, I had to take care of myself for a minute, and I'm feeling a lot better, and I'm back on the horse, so we're back with another episode. So let's get into it. Thank you, everyone who participated in TCE, Tea with TCE number 3. Had some technical difficulties and couldn't get the Facebook Live rolling, so join us again next Saturday. We'll be doing another one. Hopefully by then we'll have worked out the kinks and we'll be able to go back live. Special thanks to Lena and Casey. What a great discussion. What cool ideas are getting floated there. I think we have potential to really achieve something. And special shout out to Sam for starting her Etsy account and making her first sale. She did it. So crushed. TCE community member, getting it done. So good for you. Congratulations. What an epic, cool thing. Hope it continues to grow and onward and upward trajectory from there. So time management. I've been doing a lot of reflection, and obviously there's a common theme I hope you guys are noticing, is that I like to call on history and various historical figures who I admire, who I think express a strong significance to kind of like my point of view and what I believe in. And today I'm going to actually go back to another founding father that I admire greatly, and that's Benjamin Franklin. I got a couple of requests for some things, some topics, and self-management / time management was one of them. So I'm going to talk about that. And I think as far as looking at the prime examples of people who do that are, Ben Franklin, quite frankly. Ben Franklin was, obviously, he's a founding father, electricity, all that stuff. But what he really was a Renaissance man. He was a man of many talents, and it was a great diplomat, a general inventor. I mean, like, just amazing, right? Writer. But what he really was someone who really exuded self-discipline. Now, that wasn't true in every aspect of his life. If you know anything about Ben Franklin, you also know that he ate like a pig, drank like a fish, and had gout for like 30 years. So he was pretty gross. But in terms of like achievement and getting stuff done, he was a master. And he accomplished that through a variety of different things, but mostly through, I think, if one was able to go back and do the analysis, would have been kind of proto-acceptance commitment therapy on oneself, like acting out in that way. And I'm going to tell you exactly how. But before we get into that, let's talk about some basic strategies that you can use. Which means we're going to be talking about antecedent manipulations. Why am I going to focus on antecedent manipulations? Well, because it's really difficult right now to focus on consequences. I mean, we've talked about consequences in terms of pre-macking it. We've talked about setting up positive things for you, like good rewards and that kind of thing, but that's not always going to necessarily be possible, and or the payoff isn't always there, and or it's not necessarily setting you up to get to that point. So we missed the boat there. I missed the boat there a little bit before I went through the whole process with you, and I need to backtrack now and talk about that stuff. So when we're talking about antecedent manipulations, we're really talking about arranging the environment, putting certain things in place, preventatives in place, variables and stimuli in place that set up the environment to occasion or evoke particular behavior. That is to say that it sets you up to make you want to do the things that you need to get done and to make you feel good about it. One of the reasons I shoot the vlog, the podcast, and everything I do in my basement is because I want to show off the fact that this place is designed to inspire me. It's set up with all the stuff that I think is very cool. It's got all my superhero stuff. It's got all my knickknacks. It's my creative space. It really gets my juices flowing, right? It puts me in a mindset to want to work and want to think outside of the box and want to write and want to just be a creative person. So that's one thing. But I think, though, that there's a lot simpler ways to go about it. The easiest thing to go is, follow a little bit of a process. And I think the first step in that is we've talked about doing the reflection. And the reason I talked about reflection early on is because it's really about identifying actions and behaviors and things that you want that align with your values that you can actually commit to, that you can put in order and you can commit to. Now, that's a pretty tall order. Some pretty basic ways you can set yourself up to be able to commit to particular actions is actually very simply declare them. Say them out loud. They say that saying things out loud manifests them, right? For those people who believe in manifest destiny. But in reality, if you think about it, that is true, but it's not true because some supernatural force makes it happen. It's true because when you speak something out loud, you set the stage for the social contingencies at play to exert enough pressure and force upon you to want to manifest them and make them a reality and actually achieve those particular goals and ends. Because otherwise, you have to deal with the counter control or the aversive control of disappointment, right? So say it out loud. 2, make a schedule. Make a daily schedule. A lot of us talk about using our calendars and using a daily schedule. And we talk about using daily schedules with kids, but a lot of grown-ups don't do that. Now, some people prefer lists. Other people prefer actual calendars. I can tell you right now, and I pulled it up right here, and is that Ben Franklin had his actual calendar, and he had actually 6 categories that he used. And it was getting ready for the day, and he actually enumerated on his calendar shower, breakfast, personal study, and prepare for work. And he allotted himself a 3-hour block for those things. The second thing was morning work, which he allotted a 4-hour block. Third thing was review of current projects and eat lunch, 2 hours. Afternoon, 4 hours. Dinner and rest, wrapping up the day, 4 hours. And then he actually scheduled 7 hours worth of sleep. So his day was absolutely completely scheduled. A famous behavior analyst that I've heard, again, I don't know this, it's just some things I've heard through the grapevine, is supposedly Dick Malott has got his entire day scheduled, I think, to the quarter hour, which is like, when I heard that, I was like, that's insane. But I don't know how true that is. It's just word on the street and what I've been told from people who were students of Western Michigan and have been around him. Okay, so first thing is make a schedule. Second thing, prioritize the items on that schedule. And that could be a couple different things. The big thing, I think, is to imitate what Ben Franklin did, which is chunking. Schedule things in such a way where you group them together to maximize your efficiency, right? It makes a lot more sense to do, for example, if I have stuff like sit down work, writing work, I'm going to schedule my time in my basement. But say I have to watch the baby for a few hours or whatever when my wife does some work, I have to schedule that. I have to schedule whatever I'm doing for upstairs. That means I have to have access to those things and have my environment set up upstairs and vice versa, whatever. So what I would say is prioritize the items. Another thing I like to do is have a must-have versus a nice-to-have list. So that way I don't beat myself up if I don't get to a couple things. But we'll get to giving yourself a break at the end. Third, we already talked about this, but let's go into detail about it. Set up your space. What do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, minimize distractions. And what's the number one worst distraction that you're dealing with? Boop, your cell phone. Lock it down, man. I know that iPhones have controls in place where you can limit your social media usage. But really, if anything, you just turn it off. You're not that important. No offense to you, but you're not that important. If someone needs to get a hold of you, they'll get a hold of you. They can text you, they can leave a message, and if you need to turn it off for an hour so you can really sit down and focus on a thing, I highly suggest that. And honest to God, that's the pot calling the kettle black there, because I am a distracted person. My ADD is crazy, okay? Third, effectively communicate your needs. Now, the thing with that part of setting up your environment and why that relates to that, it goes back to the social pressures and social contingencies that act on you. A lot of the time when it comes to managing your time, you waste hours and hours and hours, or really you lose hours and hours and hours because you give that time to all these other things that distract or detract from the priorities that you have for yourself. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're fulfilling what you believe is a sense of obligation towards, your children, your significant other, your friends, whatever, parents, family, etc. And honestly, it has to get to a point where within your schedule you build in some non-negotiable time where you're unavailable, where they need to respect that time, where it's on them, it's incumbent on them a little bit to give you the space that you need to get what you need to get done. That's a little bit of a hurdle sometimes for some people, especially if you're a type B personality and you're a fixer or you're a doer for everybody else, to set that kind of a boundary. But it's pretty critical in terms of time management because hours and hours and hours get lost. I mean, they're gone. Okay. If you can't arrange that kind of relationship with people. Fourth, program for leisure, man. Program for leisure and breaks. Like, program them. Again, the worst thing in the world for that is the phone. Like, Ryan did the video on the video games and stuff. And I mean, for me, I play digital chess on this, and I'm trying to get a ranking because I have this obsession with wanting to achieve a particular rank because, I don't know, I just like little goals like that in life. So I'll play a quick 20-minute or 15-minute, game or something like that. And it's like, well, that's a 15-minute block that I technically lost that I was doing something fun on. So I kind of stole that time from whatever activity I was doing. So if something was going to take me 2 hours and now it's taking me 2.5 hours because I lost 15 minutes to the game and it took me 15 minutes to get my momentum built up back again so I can get back into the thing, that's double time I lost on that thing. So schedule those times in. So, and that means knowing how much endurance you have. Okay, if you're familiar with precision teaching, you know that like endurance is a pretty significant component of fluency. So, set up, see how long you can really last doing whatever work you got going on, and then chunk it out. So that's the next thing, like properly chunk out your time that way. And then fifth and final thing, so this is going to be like Dimitri's top 5, it's cut yourself a break. Cut yourself a break. I think the worst thing about this week for me in terms of like productivity was like beating myself up and feeling behind the gun for not having my videos done and uploaded and not having my recordings done so that Ryan could do his thing, because I was like, man, I was trying to get a video day done. I fell behind by 2 days, and then it was like, well, now I have 3 videos to do in 1 day, and I already feel like I'm treading water and walking through mud. And then it's just like this thing that I'm doing for fun has now turned into work, and it's like and I feel like a total horrible person for not achieving that. And then I talk to everybody, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's not a big deal. And I'm like, you're right, it's not a big deal. I just am like having some irrational self-doubt and like guilt about something that's irrelevant. So cut yourself a break, man. Show some self-compassion and like just know, like, building a schedule, there are things you have to do throughout a day just to be a functioning human being, but there are stuff that you don't have to get done. And if it has to wait till tomorrow, it has to wait till tomorrow, and that's not a big dedeal. As long as you did your best, and as long as you're keeping your head above water during this time in particular, like, that's all that really matters. Everything else is noise. So let's recap and rewind real quick for everybody. 5 steps for time management. First, write a schedule. Second, prioritize. Third, set up your environment. Fourth, prepare or program for leisure and breaks. And fifth, give yourself a break. That's your vlog for the day. Be marvelous. Peace.